Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you so much for coming. So I would like to introduce Onyade Adekunle to today to discuss, your graduate experience and funding experience in Canada, with the audience. So the reason that, I do this is because there are many people who don't even know what is happening. And there are those who know what is happening, but they don't know what to do. Okay? So we're going to try as much as possible to meet the expectations of these two groups. So those people who don't know what is happening is, not many people have the financial means to have, a graduate education, especially if you want to do it abroad, in a place like Canada. So, and then many people don't know they can actually do it without having to pay for their tuition and for their living expenses. And we call this scholarship or funding opportunity. So, and, in some of the discussions that I've had with people in the past, we have people who are in the sciences that, generally will be able to get funding because the STEM field, science, technology, engineering, and math, the STEM field is highly funded and people find it easier. But today I will be speaking with Onyade because you're studying history, PhD. You're doing your PhD at McMaster here in Canada, and you're studying history. So you're going to share with us, your background, where you did your BSc and your Masters, how you got to be aware of studying in Canada and paying for your studies, and then how you fund your studies so that people can gain from your experience. Okay.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Oyin Adekunle. I'm a PhD student at McMaster University in Canada. Let's give like a background story. So I studied history, bachelor's degree and master's degree at the University of Lagos. And I got like an appointment as a lecturer in the University of Lagos. It was like an automatic employment where the best graduating students get like an appointment, a lecturing position in the university. And so when I was going for my NYSC, one of my lecturers called me and was like, "Oh, congratulations, you got the position for the lecturing job." And all. I'm like, okay. And like, "Oh, do you have a passion for lecturing or are you thinking about it?" And before this, like throughout my undergrad, I wasn't thinking about the academics. Like I didn't really think about it. But after that, I started thinking about it. And I'm like, do you know what? I'm just going to experience it and see how it goes. If I like it, I stay. If I don't like it, then I'll leave and move to like the corporate world and all that. And so after my NYSC, I came back to Unilag for my master's. And then after my master's, if you are going to stay in the academics, definitely you need to up your game. You need your PhD and all that. So I'm like, okay. And during my master's, I was lecturing and I discovered that I loved it. Like I loved lecturing. It came naturally. There was something about meeting up with students. And I decided personally that the bad experiences I had with lecturers that taught me, I wasn't going to make my students experience that. So I would always incorporate like the youthful way of teaching and making sure that I was impacting, and it felt very good. But I knew that I wasn't going to like do my PhD in so I knew I wasn't going to have like a PhD degree in Nigeria because one, I felt enough. Like I had my old primary, secondary, university up to master's education in Nigeria. And I've heard stories about the odds of getting a PhD degree in Nigeria, where probably a 4-year, 5 years PhD program becomes like undetermined because of the bureaucracy in the system. And I knew I didn't want to experience that. So I said I was going to pursue a PhD program. Now, how would I do that? That was the most important question. And there's something about the power of social media. If there's anything I'll tell anyone, is just get on social media. It's way past just posting pictures and parties and all these things. There's so much you can gain from social media. And so before then, my Twitter, I had a Twitter page, but it was just dormant. So I'm like, okay, let me just get on Twitter and see what is going on. And so I'm seeing stories of like people saying, yeah, academic Twitter, and I'm seeing people saying, oh, they got admission or scholarship and all that. But the problem was that 98% of these people were STEM, or you hear physics, chemistry, and like, so what happens to like English? What happens to literary studies? What happens to history? Like, what's going on? I didn't know scholarship. So I'm like, okay. And luckily for me, I had like a colleague who traveled to Canada 2 years before for a PhD. So I contacted her and I'm like, oh, I would like to apply for my PhD. How do I do this? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do this? And I also had a friend who came from Canada. His school, the secondary school and his university was in Canada, came to Nigeria, and I'm like, oh, I also want to apply. So how do I do this? So he's like, okay, he's doing a master's in US now. He knows about the US system. So I had someone who knew about the US system, and I had someone who knew about the Canadian system. And so I decided that, okay, I was going to apply to Canada and US. Now, the problem was for a PhD, you need a supervisor. If you don't have a supervisor, then I don't think getting a PhD is possible. So now it was about getting a supervisor. I searched for supervisors in Canada. Now, one thing about my discipline is not like the sciences. One thing about the humanities is that you might find someone that is in your field generally, like geographically, but thematically, that person is not in your field. So I got responses like, oh, I would have loved to supervise you, but I'm working on East Africa, not West Africa. Oh, I'm working on legal history, not political history. So it was just back and forth for Canada. But for US, probably because there are more schools in the US, I got more positive feedback. So now I decided that I was going to apply. Now the journey was, how many schools do I want to apply to? Because for Nigeria, you need to request for transcripts for each school. You don't get your copy of transcripts. And I'm like, I'm not from a wealthy background. So I had to like strategize and practically use like 90% of my salary for scholarship purposes, like application purposes. So I decided that this is how I was going to seek. This was how I sought my supervisor. I Googled PhD universities in Canada that offer PhD in history. And that was what I searched. Then universities in the US that offer PhD in history. So I opened like different windows for that. And so I saw universities that had PhD programs. And so I went through each school. Like I could do like 15 schools per day or 20 schools per day. Go to each school, check the department, check the faculty, and see who is in line with what I want to, like my research or what I tend to like specialize in. So for Canada, I probably found like 10%. And I found like my 90% in the US. So at the end of the day, I got 3 schools that I finally decided that I will apply to. 3 schools in the US and 1 school in Canada. Now, how do I contact these supervisors. And that's why I said the power of social media. Like this 21st century system, I feel is like just the most beneficial for we, the younger generation, because I decided that okay, I was pretty amazed because I'm like, I'm going to send emails to people who don't even know what I look like, who have no experience of who I am. And I'm expecting them to just say, yes, I would want you to come to my country, to my department, and I'll supervise you for 4 years. Like, how is that even realistic? How does that work? So that was like just the clause in my head, like, how will someone who doesn't even know me decide to like, okay, I'm going to give you money for 4 years to school and I'm going to teach you. So I'm like, okay. So I went online again and I searched for samples of emails when contacting a PhD supervisor. So that was what I did. So I got different samples. And one thing is you have to be creative, not that you just carry everything verbatim and then transfer it. So I read it and I knew what I wanted to say. So I contacted those 4 prospective supervisors from these 4 different universities, telling them who I am, just briefly my background and why I'm choosing them to be my prospective supervisor. And I attached my transcript, my master's thesis, my transcripts, my master's thesis, and one other thing, but I can't remember. So I sent it. I'm like, oh, find attached my transcript, BA transcript, master's transcript, and a sample of my writing, which is my master's thesis. And that was what I did. So I sent it to these people, and I got the positive feedback saying they'll be glad to supervise me if I get the admission and all that. So out of these 4 schools, one of the schools in US, I had to do like the interview. I did that. The other 2, I got the admission straight, like congratulations, when it was time to release the results. 1 in Canada, 2 in the US. So I got these schools. And to be honest, I wasn't expecting the Canada admission. I wasn't expecting the master admission. Why? Because now there's something called the imposter syndrome. I knew my capabilities, my bachelor's degree, my master's, and everything. But I still felt like, I don't know if it's like low self-esteem or something. I still felt like I saw my prospective supervisor for my master and I saw his profile and I've seen someone that is working with the United Nations, all these accolades. I'm like, who am I? From where? Is it this small Ekiti girl from Nigeria that this person wants to supervise? So I didn't really follow my mind. I'm like, okay, Canada gave me too much stress because I know that getting a scholarship for humanities is tough. You just have to keep. So I'm like, okay, I didn't even look at it. So I sent my supervisor the email in July. And applications, now that's another thing. You need to contact these supervisors early and maintain this contact. So I started all this, my process in April, used like a week to draft my email that I sent to them, corrected my master's thesis to make sure it was okay, even if I knew they would not go through everything, but I didn't know what page they were going to check or what chapter, so I corrected everything. I sent people like the draft of the email, like, can you just go through this email? Is there anything I'm missing out? You can always ask people that have done it before. So, and I didn't put my mind to the Canadian school. I just faced the 3 schools. I'm like, no matter how bad it is, one out of these 3 schools in the US would definitely pick me. But Canada, nah, this one is way out of my league. So I sent an email in July, and I think the automatic email said it was on sabbatical leave. So I'm like, that's just the sign. And he replied me, I should send him something, my original transcript, not the unofficial, original. And one thing is, in Nigeria, you can't, for Unilag, you can't get your transcript. It is like, I got the degree, but it's like Unilag owns my transcript. So I was like, oh God, this is just going to be impossible. So I left it. I applied for the original transcript, but I didn't really put my mind to it. I didn't get my original transcript till October. This was like 3 months after. And I didn't contact this man. I didn't send him anything. I didn't remind him. I didn't send it. I just kept it. So when I got it, I'm like, how do you contact someone you didn't respond to for 3 months? Like, who does that? But I'm like, do you know what? What's the worst thing that could happen? Yeah, he doesn't know my face. So even if he sees me, he can't accuse me of doing anything wrong. So I'm like, I'm just going to send him this official transcript and just tell him what happened. So I sent him like, dear so and so, I'm sorry for, apologies for the late reply. I had delays getting this and this document, but yeah, the documents. And I sent it to him, and he replied me like 30 minutes later, I would be glad to supervise you if you get it. And I'm like, okay, this is getting real. Okay, this is getting real. Okay. So I'm like, oh, and then one thing about this again is you're an African student. You are, what will I say? This is like an invisible contest against hundreds of people that are applying for that same position that you're applying for. So I'm like, one, for the humanities, you have to think about your research. You have to think like the geographical concept of your research, the thematical concept of your research. So it was just streamlining everything. And it's like, only, please make sure your application is strong, because you're not the only international students that will be applying. And the PhD, they don't take so much people. It could be like 3 or 4 in a set. So I'm like, okay, let's just give this a go. And so I did the whole process, the US process. I did SOP for each school, made sure my transcript for each school, worked on my writing sample for each school, did the GRE exam for someone that is in the humanities and we're not really maths lovers. I'm like, no, I have to do this. And I'm still doing this and using like 90% of my salary every month to like pay for this. Okay, I'm paying for this application fee this month. I'm paying for this. And I think it all boils down to determination. I'm the first child of my family, and my parents are not really buoyant like that. And I knew that if you don't make way for yourself, no one is going to do it for you. I don't have like a prominent surname that is going to open doors for me. So if I don't stand up and start making moves for myself, no one is going to do it for me. So I'm like, okay, they've told you that there's scholarship. You've checked online and there's scholarship. Yes, it is not favorable for humanities because they are not so much like that. But try. So I did the GRE. The GRE turned out well. And then I applied. And what I did was I created a folder for each school. So I don't send the one for US to Canada and all that. So I created a folder for each school and put in the documents, check the requirements, make sure I was following up. And contacted those I wanted them to write recommendation letters for me very early. Now, deadline for submission of application was in January. I started in April before. I started my process in April. I wrote my GRE in July. People were like, why are you in a rush to write this exam? I'm like, I'm not a maths lover. So let me just put 2 months of reading and knowing where X and Y is that I'm not interested in and just write this exam and be done with it. I did that, got my transcript by October, submitted my application a few days before Christmas. The deadline was in January. So I submitted 2 schools before Christmas. Then the other 2 schools, I submitted like first week of January, just before the close of the deadline. And then the wait began. And the first school replied and said, sorry, our quota for this PhD program as this was, and I'm like, okay, you feel that my application, why are you sugarcoating it? Just tell me you didn't get it. And they're like, oh, your application was good, but we have like a quota for each thing and you didn't meet up. I'm like, okay, please try again next year. I'm like, I'm even going to get one this year. And I'm going to say another thing. There's nothing about affirmations. If you are not speaking it, sorry, I'm a Christian, so I'm a firm believer in like speaking it, saying what you want, and it works. And I'm like, oh, I'm never applying next year because I'm definitely going to get one. God cannot hate me so much that I applied to 4 schools and I don't get one. And I'm like, the money I've spent imagine spending money on transcripts for each school, spending money on application fee. And now I just discovered, I didn't know then, now social media, that you could even apply for waivers for your application fee. And I didn't apply for waivers. So I paid for application fee for 4 schools, paid for GRE exam. Internet in Nigeria, we know how bad it is for data and all that. I'll go to work in the morning, get back very late, like Nigerian work style, traffic, get back like 10 p.m., rest, wake up in the middle of the night, practice my GRE, wake up the next morning and go to work. Because I'm like, this is the year. I am not spending 1 year extra in this country. But I was more focused on the US.
Let me just make a point on, from what you've said so far, which is very important, which is sacrifice. So sacrifice is very, very, very important, whether it's monetary, self-denial, and all of that, delayed gratification. So yeah, I remember it's just similar to my story as well. When it was my first job after I finished school, and finally you can, at least all the struggle, you can finally eat something. And I spent almost everything trying to do applications, so, but and I did not even know, I did not know anybody in Canada when I was applying. So I didn't even have anyone to talk to. And I was not aware of, I'm aware of Twitter. I've been on Twitter now for like 11 years, but in fact, I can tell you that my tweet is not up to maybe 100. So I don't do it. I'm not on it. And so I don't really have information. So, but the inclination is that you have to be able to sacrifice, make the best use of what you have, make the best use of the resources that you have, and believe that you will be successful. So as many applications that you can do, try to do it. The financial resources that you have, just put it in. And being, both of us now, we can testify to the fact that if you can succeed, you just need one. You just need to succeed in one application. The investment is worth it. It's worth it. So try to do the sacrifice. And I just can't believe why you will not get admission. If you don't get the first year, try again. And I just see it as a game of probability. The more applications, the better your chances. So put in the applications, and yeah. So that's a very good point. Sacrifice and believing that it will happen. So yeah.
Yeah. So so out of 4 schools, 1 school replied and said no. So I had 3. So I'm like, okay, we have 3. Now, in my mind, I was even saying 2 because I wasn't even looking at the Canada. I'm like, this is way out of your league. Going like, who sent you message? Well, you know how hard it is to even get a supervisor. So out of like maybe 30 schools, I got probably like 3 in Canada that were like, okay, finally I would be able to supervise you. And I decided, okay, I don't want to waste money. I'm going to look at the one that have the strongest chances. And I said, okay, this one is very good. Like, this is someone, because his research is something I've always wanted to do. But because you're in University of Lagos, probably your lecturers are not skilled in this field. And so you compromise. So I found someone that was doing something I've always wanted to do in terms of research. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to try. And so the 3 schools replied. One of the US replied and said, congratulations, you got it. Like, finally, okay, I got one. But I'm like, okay, let me wait for the other 2 schools. So the other US school responded. So I got into 2 schools out of 3 schools in the US. And I'm like, finally. And then they give you like, I think, a period of 1 month or 2 months to give them a feedback if you're going to accept the admission or the scholarship. And so they say, congratulations, this is like your scholarship. And that was, now this is the amazing thing. So when the first letter arrives, I saw the scholarship money. I'm like, okay, so this is what they'll pay you per year. Like my brain, I was just marveled. And I did not, you see one thing about sacrifice, you don't remember all the things you've gone through once you start reaping the dividend. So when I saw that scholarship, I never remember the fact that I used 90% of my salary again. I didn't remember all the sacrifices. I just saw like the reward of it. Because I'm like saying, congratulations, this is what you're getting. And then the second school comes and I'm seeing the money and it's getting to about $80,000 per year. And I'm like, what? 80,000? This is something that even professors in Nigeria are not earning. So what, like, how do you even fathom this? Now, bear in mind that all these lecturers or prospective supervisors have, prior to this, me getting my scholarship, they had not seen me face to face. There was not even a video call. There was no a video. It was just emails. Dear, this, warm regards, kind regards, and all that. So there was no facial. I could not put a face to it. They could not put a face to me, but I saw their pictures, obviously, on the faculty website. And then I saw the others come like, yes, if I'm looking at it in terms of money, one, I'm getting into a PhD program. So this scholarship money is a lot. And then 2 days later, because I'm like, let's even see whether Canada. And then Canada comes in, my master letter comes in and it says, congratulations, you've been accepted. I'm like, what? Is this lecturer? Did he read? Does he know? Like, I felt now that's one thing. You have to just believe yourself. And that thing taught me a valuable lesson, which still helps me till today. Like, you never know. The worst thing you get is a no. And no does not do anything to your body. Like, the worst thing you can get is a no. So just try. If I didn't put in the application, if I didn't send in that email, if I still felt like this person is way out of my league, like, how would he, what do I have to offer? What else do I want? Like, how would he want to supervise me? If I had that mindset and I didn't apply, I would not be in Canada today. That's just the truth. So people keep asking me.
Let me ask you a question. So you got 2 offers from the US, right?
Yes.
And then you got one.
And I got one.
So why did
so
you
people
choose?
keep asking me like, Oyin, congratulations. Canada. Like, Canada is like the new Nigerian way. Everybody, I want to go to Canada. I want to leave Nigeria and go to Canada. And like, how did you get Canada? Like, how many schools did you apply to? When I tell people, oh, I only applied to my master, they're like, what? I'm like, yes, I only applied to my master. Now, that is another valuable lesson. You have to be sure or weigh your chances. This is what they want. This is the requirement of the school. Do I have my SOP? Is it tight? Do I feel like it is strong enough? Like my research, that's one thing about the supervisor. Make sure that your research and the supervisor's interests are intertwined or related to something that the supervisor is interested in. Because I cannot be thinking of doing a research in A, meanwhile my supervisor is an expert in B. It won't really work. Now, the reason why people keep asking, why did you choose Canada? Why not go to US? Now, the side thing is that the scholarship money for one of the schools in the US was more than my master. So if I was looking at it in terms of monetary things, I'll have gone to the US. But 3 things made me choose Canada. 1, so I learned that you have to be very careful about who your supervisor is. If you make a mistake and you chase only the money and you don't look at the personality of your supervisor, you will land in serious trouble. Because this is practically going to be your partner, in quotes, for the next 4-5 years of your academic journey. So you need to make a right. It's like in marriage. If you marry the wrong person, you're in trouble. So I thought about it. I'm like, who is going to be the best fit for me in terms of being a supervisor that I know that I will learn from not just academically, but would not make my life miserable. Now, bear in mind that the reason why I was leaving Nigeria, not doing my PhD in Nigeria, as a lecturer and someone who got like appointment in Unilag, I would have been able to do my PhD for free without paying anything. So that was part of my package as a lecturer in Unilag. Now, I was leaving Unilag because I didn't want the whole stress of lecturers frustrating my life. So why would I come to a foreign country and pick a supervisor who is still going to frustrate my life? So I thought about it. I'm like, okay, out of these three supervisors, who do I feel would not give me a tough time? Now, and I'm a very spiritual person. So I'm like, God, just if it's a sign, just let me know that. Let me just eliminate and know who is going to be my supervisor. So one of the one with the highest funding in the US sent me like an email. And the email was something along the lines of, you've not told me you want the scholarship. If you don't tell me now, let me know. I have a lot of people who want the scholarship. I'm like, oh, okay. Now, this person is making it feel like he's doing me a favor. I'm giving you the scholarship. But now, this person, as I've never started the program, I am making it feel, so like the ego is so much and in my face. Now, imagine if I'm your student, only God knows what's going to happen. I'm not started. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going. The money is a lot. I know what that money is. If I pay my fees and my TA money comes in, I know how much will be left with me. And even if I don't work, I'll be fine. But I'm like, no, I'm not going to be one of, and I've seen horror stories on Twitter. So people saying they dropped out in second year because their PhD supervisor frustrated them. I'm like, no, I'm not going to experience that. I'm not going to be that kind of person that travels and then comes back home and says, I left. Why? What happened? So I'm like, so I X'd that one. So I had to. So I spoke with my mentors. Now, this is another thing. It is important for you to have mentors. I have two amazing mentors who are vast in my field. And one is a lecturer in Unilag and one is a lecturer in the US, but they are Nigerians. So I spoke with them. I'm like, I have these two options. And one of them asked me a question. Your field and your research, who are you more drawn to? And it was Canada. Like, I've been looking for someone in that field for probably since my third year in the university. And I couldn't find someone. So I finally found someone in this field and is like an expert. And it's someone that is doing so well in that field. So I'm like, Canada. And then another reason why I picked Canada, aside the supervisor and my research interest, was just the afterlife of academics. I know how tough it is for, let's say, students in the US to like get like the whole stay, residence, and all that. And Canada is offering PR, like transitioning from students to permanent residents to be a Canadian citizen. Like, it is just a process. Just have patience, do the right thing, don't do past yourself, follow the rules, and you'll be fine. And I had Nigerians who are paying so much trying to do the PR process. I'm like, okay, why not come to Canada for free? Let someone pay me for being a student. After that, do the whole PR stuff, make a way for me. And I don't want my children, yes, this is a Nigerian thing. I don't want my children to come and be blaming me that, Mommy, why did you give us dual citizenship? So that was it. Those three things, the future prospects.
Yeah, let me make a point about I think you made a good choice, because this is the main reason so I'm a Canadian evangelist. I don't advise anyone to go somewhere else. So just come to Canada, when you are planning to travel abroad, when you are planning to travel abroad to study, it's not only the education, but you want to think about life in general, okay? And, you are going to get much more than education in Canada. So your studies is just for a very short period of time. PhD is the longest. You do 4 or 5 years and you are done. So after you are done, what do you get? What do you get if you go to UK? What do you get if you go to Finland? What do you get if you go to Japan? What do you get if you go to the US? And I think, what do you get if you come to Canada? So